Hello, I'm Bogrips, and this is an absolute beginner's guide to EU4 in which I'll be hitting the ground running. I'm calling this a quick start guide because as opposed to teaching you how to understand all the mechanics and really fully explain everything, I'm just going to teach you how to run EU4 and play a game hitting the ground running. So I've decided to do this as Portugal, which is a really great country for beginning players. You have an extremely safe starting position with no neighbors except for Castile. It's also very easy to get an alliance with Castile. And if you really don't know anything about EU4, it's a simulation game of world events and history and military matters and diplomacy that runs day by day from 1444 to 1821. You play as a country. We're going to be playing as Portugal, so I might as well just get into it. So I'm going to be doing it in Iron Man. That just means I can't load old save states, so it's a little more dangerous, but I would recommend playing on Iron Man because I think losing in this game can be pretty fun and hilarious. So the game is going to pop up a little history screen where you can learn a bit about Portugal. I'll scroll. If you want to pause, you can have a look at that. But I'll just give you my interpretation of historical starting position. So we're over here at the tip of Western Europe. The Iberian Peninsula has been controlled by a state called Al-Andalus, which was Sunni for maybe 800 years by this point. And several kingdoms, starting in northern, what is now northern Spain, conquered their way down and re-Christianized it. And so Portugal has a strong religious fervor, is closely aligned with Catholicism and the Pope, and we kind of have a historical affinity with Castile because we work together on the Reconquista. There's one rump state left from Al-Andalus called Granada, and they might be a military target for us. So anyway, we are Granada. I can click on my own country, and it brings up provinces. If I right-click, it'll bring up my diplomacy view. You can also bring this up by clicking on the flag. It's a bunch of tabs. It's overwhelming, but just don't worry about it. I'll try to explain the most important things first, and explain more complicated things as they become relevant to the gameplay. So up here at the top, this is kind of your basic EU4. Each day is simulated. You can pause the game by pressing spacebar or clicking here. I'm going to put it on speed 3. I usually play at speed 3 or 4, depending on whether a lot of things are happening. Oh, and look at this. So the game gives you flags. If you're a really new player, it'll kind of pop up and tell you the most important things. Really urgent things are red. Relatively urgent things are yellow, and long-term or unimportant things are green. But I've just got a notification that I have an alliance offer from Castile. And actually, this is one of the most important things in EU4, and the first thing that I wanted to explain was diplomacy. So I can right-click on Castile, on any of their provinces, and it'll bring up the diplomacy view for them, and I can send them a military alliance offer. And because they already like us, there are attributes for how much a country likes you and how much you like them. So their opinion of me is 50, which is pretty good, and my opinion of them is 50, so they're offering me an alliance. This is kind of a historical game start thing that the game just railroads Castile and Portugal into being allies, which is nice for me right now. So I'm going to accept their alliance, and this is great because now I have friends. Friends are so important. A big, strong friend who will probably become Spain and have a world empire by the end of the game. So that's really great. Now I'm relatively safe. I'm just letting the game run right now. But it's all good, like I can let the game run, it's fine. My country is stable, things are pretty good. So I'm going to do something else with Castile. I'm going to get I'm going to improve relations with them, but first I want a royal marriage. So again, this is like an abstraction of what happened in history in this time period. You can kind of imagine what a royal marriage does. It's going to give me closer ties with Castile. It'll make them more likely to want to go to war with me and less likely to break our alliance. It also gives me some other benefits. So another thing probably that you'll need to know to navigate EU4 is that there are a number of different map modes, and these are pretty important They can be selected by clicking on these buttons down here. Some of them are more relevant than others, and you'll spend most of the game playing on the political map mode, but there's also trade, diplomatic, and culture. So I'm going to show just a few of them. I'll show the trade map mode. Don't really have to understand trade for now, but there's value in each of these trade nodes, and the value shifts around. At some point I'll optimize my trade and explain it in more detail. This is diplomatic, so your country in the diplomatic map mode is green, your allies are blue. We start out at the beginning of the game with an alliance with England. Again, this is a historical thing. Interestingly, Castile and England have the longest lasting military alliance in history, which lasts to this very day. So that's pretty cool. And I can also see the diplomatic map mode for other countries. So I'm Castile's only ally. You can see France has a few different allies. The colors indicate different things. So anyway, that's cool. Another one is religion. This is an important map mode. We are Catholic. This is an attribute of my country. You can see this in the diplomacy screen, that we are Catholic. And then we also have a ruler in our country, which can be seen in the court screen. We are at game start in a regency council because our king is a little boy. When he turns 15, he will come of age and start ruling our country, but for now we have this Infante Pedro regency council. So you'll see at the top, one of the flags is too few rivals, and that one's red. So the game really wants us to do this. This is kind of playing into diplomacy still. So I'm going to go back to the political map mode. And I'm going to set countries as rivals. This is kind of a weird abstraction. This is like publicly declaring that you just hate someone. You're like, screw you, we're gonna go to war with you, you're my enemy. And doing this kind of can bring you closer to your allies who have shared enemies with you. And it also gives you something called power projection, which is a game feature I'll explain in due time. So when I pick rivals, I want to pick people that I'm going to fight. I'm also going to roleplay a bit, and I'm only going to pick Sunni countries. I'm going to try and remain friendly with all the Catholics. So Morocco, you can see I have this territory in North Africa. So I'm probably going to fight them, so I'm going to set Morocco as my rival. I'm also going to set Grenada as a rival, because they also share a border with me, and they're very weak. You can see that here. They're 54% smaller than us, so they'd be a good rival because I could fight them. You don't want to antagonize big evil people who will kill you. I'm also gonna set Tunis as a rival because they're the only other Sunni nation which remains for me to do that. Okay, so we took care of a red flag. We are doing our thing. We're Portugal. I can let the game pan out. We have allies, which is of course very important for us to survive in this geopolitical world. So another important thing for a nation like ours is a budget. So up here, this is the very first sort of, along the top, you have this bar with all the attributes of your country. The very first one, top left, is our treasury. And so we're actually losing a little bit of money right now, which is not a big deal, to be honest with you. Money's not the most important thing in the game, but I'm going to go to my budget and show a few ways that I'm going to save money right now in game. So the first thing you can see up here is I have fort maintenance. I'm paying 3 ducats per month on forts. I have 3 forts, which is a lot, in Lisboa, Évora, and Quetta. So that's more fort than I want to pay for. 3 ducats is, yeah, that's a lot. That's like a third of my income. So what I'm going to do is I have these 2 forts, one in Lisboa and one in Évora. You can kind of see those on the game map. Also, when you click on a province, you can open up its buildings. So you can see there's a building here in Lisboa, and there's another one at Évora. And I'm going to delete the one in Évora. I don't really think we need it. It's a little redundant. And then another thing that I can do is click on another province with a fort, and you can see there's this little button down here. It's fully maintained, costing us 1 ducat every month. So I'm going to click that button. The garrison, there were a few thousand people in the fort, now there's none. I'm going to do the same thing on Lisboa. So now my forts are still there. I fully destroyed this one, I guess. It's just, we razed it to the ground. But these ones are still there, they're just not full of people. And now my fort maintenance has gone down to 1. I'm paying half price for the 2 forts remaining. So I went from 3 to 1, and now I have a juicy little surplus. So another thing I'm going to do with my money to save some is I'm going to reduce my military expenditure. And you can see that saves me quite a bit of money. And maybe you didn't notice, maybe you did, but there's a green bar on the right side of this little military unit that went from green to yellow. So now my army has lower morale and will fight worse. And it doesn't really matter if you don't understand the details of that. We're just going to lose battles now. So anyway, speaking of, here's the military unit. I can select it by clicking and dragging or left-clicking on it, and I can make it move to other provinces by right-clicking there. So I can send this guy from province to province. The way wars work is I will march my army into another country's provinces, and my army will occupy those provinces. And if you occupy your opponent's provinces, you win the war. So battles are, of course, important. If two armies occupy the same province, they'll have a battle. But ultimately, battles allow you to occupy provinces, and that's really what wins you the war at the end of the day. Okay, so moving on, I've freed up a bunch of budget. I have 3 ducats surplus right now, which is great. That's like a third of our income is pure profit, so that's pretty good stuff. But I'm actually going to want to spend some of that money, because money's good, but there's other more important attributes. There's other more important resources. And probably the most important resource in the game that you're going to want to conserve is your administrative, diplomatic, and military monarch power. So this is just, again, we're trying to simulate things. You can kind of imagine what the developers had in mind here. This is everything that your country does, and it's organized into these 3 categories. And the primary thing that you're going to do with your monarch power is spend it on technology. As you can see here, these bars will fill up as we gain enough monarch power to buy the technology. Technologies are very expensive, but also very important. So I will be getting technologies pretty much whenever they are available. The way you get monarch points is you start out in each category having 3 just for existing and having a court, and then you get 3 plus whatever your monarch skills are. So we would generate 7 administrative skill. There's also this mechanic where you can set a focus. So right now we are setting our focus on diplomatic, which means 1 point from admin and 1 point of mill will be stolen from those categories and put onto dip. I'm actually going to remove that, so now we have no focus. We just have an even spread of monarch points. So we get 3 plus 4, 3 plus 2, and 3 plus 1 to get us 7, 5, and 4 monarch power. But there's a great way of earning more monarch power. I can hire advisors. So advisors gives you monarch points as well as some benefit. So I am going to get this guy. He's giving us production efficiency, which is basically just going to make us money. And he gives us one administrative skill. This guy is plus 2 administrative skills, but you can see he costs 6 ducats per month, which is very expensive. Or sorry, he's 2 ducats per month, and only 6 up front. Okay, that's cool. I guess, okay, so this is someone that Spain gets as a bonus or as an event. So I'm actually going to hire that guy. Usually your level 2 advisors are much more expensive. So this guy costs 1 to get 1, and this guy costs 2 to get 2. So I'm going to do 2 for 2. That sounds good. Can get a diplomatic advisor as well. Here you can see the plus 2 advisor costs 4, so that's pretty, I can't really afford that. So I'm going to get this guy who's 1 ducat a month. And then I can either have one of these 2 bonuses. I'm going to have land maintenance, that'll save me money. And now you can see I have an advisor maintenance expenditure of 4 ducats per month, and I'm balancing my budget, so this is good for me. Another thing that I'm going to want to do here early in the game is I'm going to boost my stability. And this is something that I can do with my administrative monarch power. This is, you can imagine the government working on itself to improve its, I don't know, enforcement of laws or taxation or its bureaucracy system or something. So now we went from 0 stability to plus 1 stability. And you can see in the tooltip there, it gives us a bunch of bonuses, which, yeah, it's good stuff. It's going to give us money. It's going to make our people less likely to revolt. It's going to make our trade and taxation more effective. Definitely, if you can ever be at positive stability, you should try to be at positive stability. It's usually well worth it. And if you're at positive stability, you tend to increase through events. I haven't had too many events yet, I don't think, but that's kind of a core gameplay mechanic that I'll explain when we get one. Okay, so what have I done? I've allied Castile. Again, you right-click to bring up diplomacy, and it gives you a lot of diplomacy options. I royal married Castile. I started out the game already with an alliance with England. Actually, I'm going to royal marry England, might as well. I stopped paying for my army. I removed a fort and lowered the maintenance on my 2 other forts, and I hired advisors. So whenever you can balance your budget and have level 1 advisors, you should do it. Monarch points are more important. They're definitely worth 1 ducat for 1 monarch point per month. And so we're in a good position. As the game progresses, we will accrue a little bit of money and quite a bit of monarch points. And even if we're not doing anything, we're not declaring war on people, we're gaining strength right now. We're in a good position. So something else that I haven't explained is I have agents. And this is another thing that I can do to set up my country for success. You can see these are indicated by the little portraits at the top. So we have merchants and colonists, diplomats, and missionaries. So right now we have 2 merchants, so you can see it's 0 out of 2. That means there's 0 merchants out of my 2 available. I kind of teased this with a trade screen, but my merchants do things to do with trade. So if you open up the trade map mode, there's little icons to indicate where my merchants are. Without getting too overwhelmed with what's going on here, the world's organized into trade nodes, and the value from trade nodes flow from one to the other. So our home provinces are all in the Sevilla trade node, and our province capital, which is Lisboa, you can see that indicated by the little crown on a stick, is all within the Sevilla trade node. And you can see here on this little button, you can also click on that I have 27% of the power in that trade node, which means that of the value that's in the Sevilla trade node, I get to take 27% of it each month. There's also some trade power being lost, so 2 ducats per month are leaving our node and going to a downstream node, Genoa. But on the flip side, we are taking value out of these other trade nodes and bringing them towards us. So that's what my merchants are doing. You can set a merchant to do that by clicking on the trade node, and then you can either collect from trade. Here, there would be a button that says send merchant or transfer trade, but I am already doing that, so I can do it over here. You can see there's a button to transfer trade power. So what you want to do is put your merchants upstream, so against the arrows of where your home capital node is, indicated by this little, I don't know, box and a barrel, I guess, main trading port. And the merchants will help bring the money into your node, and you can collect it. So under the country sort of view, there's also a trade screen, which gets you more information. You can see 3 ducats per month, and almost 1/3 of our income is trade. So this is pretty huge for us. This is basically allowing for us to hire advisors. One other thing that you can do to make your trade better is have your light ships protect trade. So I haven't talked too much about ships. Ships work much like your armies. You can raise and lower their maintenance in the budget screen. You can see I'm leaving my fleet maintenance high because I'm going to use that to protect trade just now. You can right click to move them into sea tiles. They can dock in provinces. So light ships can do something called protect trade. So this is kind of protecting it from pirates or natural disasters like your Coast Guard, and it makes more it gives you trade power in the different nodes. So we're going to protect trade in our home node. I think that's going to be the best. Well, it says here that I can get there's a tooltip right that pops down. It tells you how much profit you're going to make. Okay, I'll send it to Safi. So these ships will be protecting trade in Safi trade node. We will have a little more power in that node. You can see we went up to 10% from maybe 8%. And so this is going to, oh wow, look, we went up to 14% at the month tick. So you've seen this a few times already. When the month turns over, the game does some calculations on things like trade and income. It doesn't calculate everything every day. That would be very inefficient. So it does a lot of calculations at the month tick. And that's also your budgetary interval. It's +3 per month. It's your Monarch point interval. That's when you get your Monarch points is on the 1st of the month. So you can kind of use that to your advantage sometimes. A lot of things happen on the month tick, so you can be cognizant of when you do things and work that to your benefit. So again, we're just letting the game play. Look, maybe like a year or something has happened. We have our allies, Castile and England. They're very good allies, both strong countries. Potentially we could end up warring with France because England has some provinces in France that France is going to want back. But we're doing pretty well right now. We have positive stability. I guess I'll explain a few more things on this screen. So I talked about armies. 14,000 people, men, are in this army. That comes out of our manpower pool. So right now we already have these 14,000 men invested in this standing army, and we have a pool, like a backup, of 12,000. So I'm going to build a few more troops. Oh, I haven't shown you this yet. Okay, so this is called the production interface. You can use this to build things and interact with your country in a lot of different ways. This is really handy. So you click on the top tab, which is land units that came up automatically, and I can either build normal units or mercenaries. You can see mercenaries cost 30 ducats and are expensive, half a ducat per month. So I'm going to mostly have my armies consist of infantry, like normal army, non-mercenary infantry. So I'm going to build 4, and there's a reason for that. Oops, I'm only going to build 4, sorry. So I have 14 troops in my standing army, and then I have what's called a force limit of 18. That means my country's military apparatus, or whatever you want to think of, is sophisticated enough to support 18,000 troops. And if we get more than that, it costs us a lot of extra money. So typically, it's best to stay within your force limit, but also to be as close to your force limit as possible, because that's kind of like the strongest, most swole you can be. It makes you look powerful on the international stage. It makes your allies like you. So I'm going to go up to my force limit right now. I'm now seeing that through the military tab in the country view. Again, if you're playing the game, you can just go for a little exploration. Like if you hover over things, they'll tell you about it. And if you don't know what things are, it's really just don't worry about it. Like you can still play the game without understanding everything. You won't understand everything for maybe ever. Okay, so we just built a bunch of troops. That's great. Unfortunately, that's costing us a little extra money, so we're losing 0.1 ducat per month, but really, that's not enough of a loss to worry about. And yeah, we're living pretty good right now. So, I talked about my agents, and I made allies, and maybe you noticed that the diplomats disappear to go do those things. So I have 3 free diplomats, again, seen up on the agent screen. And that's kind of a waste. You should always try to have your diplomats doing something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into covert actions, and I'm going to build a spy network on Granada. Granada is my enemy, they are my rival, and a spy network is going to allow me to claim their territory and then fight them. So in this game, you can declare war on whoever you want, whenever you want, but if you don't have a good reason for doing so, you look tyrannical, and it has a number of penalties associated with that. So if I were to declare war with someone for no reason, like suppose I was just like, hey Scotland, I don't like you very much, and oh well, I'm a Regency Council, so I can't even do this. Okay, well, point is, if you try to declare wars on countries and you don't have a good reason for going to war with them, you lose 2 stability and you gain something called aggressive expansion, which basically makes other countries hate you. But I do think I want to go to war with Granada if possible. Spain might do that. They might beat me to the punch because Spain has every reason to want this land that's not even connected to my land. Okay, gonna go into the diplomacy screen with Spain. I'm gonna ask access through their territory. You have to have access to another country's territory to move your troops there. And now look at this, I'm gonna just sit my army right next to Granada, menacingly. Gonna stare at their numbers. You can see, so they have only 8,000 troops. Oh, okay, so here's something that's happening with my military. Do you see the little skull that appeared? And you see up here in my, I don't even know what this thing is called, the outliner. These troops are red and have a skull. They are suffering attrition. So just like your country can only support so many troops, each province can only support so many troops. If I have my army selected and hover the cursor over a province, you can see the supply limit is 16, and I have 18 troops. So 1.2% of these units are going to die every month that we spend in this province, which is bad. So that means 180 Portuguese patriots are going to die for no good reason just for standing there. So I want to avoid attrition. It's one of those things that as a beginner you kind of forget about or don't notice, and that's usually not that big a deal, but in some circumstances you can accidentally have a high attrition, like 5%, and lose all your manpower. So you can see something just popped up. My units have suffered casualties. I have 36 dead Portuguese that I need to replenish for my manpower pool. Replenishing troops also costs you money. So yeah, avoiding attrition is typically a good idea. So something else that I haven't talked too much about is this, another sort of a country attribute, is your prestige. So again, this is an abstraction of, you know, how well liked you are in the sort of medieval feudal world, or later on the early modern world. So we have a prestige that goes from -100 to +100, and we have 5.75. So you can see in the tooltip there, prestige affects many things, but primarily how likely other nations are to accept our proposals, and royal marriage and personal unions. So you can see specifically in the tooltip, the effects of the prestige, they're all good things. Morale of armies, legitimacy, improving relations, aggressive impacts. These are all really good things. You want to have as high a prestige as possible, but sometimes you can sacrifice prestige for other things. Linked with prestige is legitimacy. So prestige and legitimacy are kind of like interwoven, because positive prestige will give you legitimacy. So it changes more slowly, and it, as you can see in the tooltip, it gives you a little explanation. It's how legitimate our monarchs are perceived to be. So right now, we have this guy, Infante Pedro, who's 14, and we have this Regency Council. So actually, we're losing legitimacy, I think, because, yeah, we lose 2 per month because we have a Regency. No one thinks the Regency is very legit. Maybe someone could just kill the baby and throw the country into chaos. So that's going to have a lot of effects on things. It's going to make people more unruly. It's going to make make us like other religions less, which is kind of a bizarre mechanic. So that's all well and good. Right now, I'm on speed 3, I'm just playing along, waiting for my spy networks to be up to 20. When they are 20, I can do something called claiming a province, and then I can use my claim to get a casus belli to declare war. Okay, here is a event. I have 2 options. I can either lose administrative power or prestige. That's pretty rough, actually. I think I'm going to lose administrative power right now. I have no good way of getting prestige in the early game. And prestige is pretty valuable for me. If it goes low, it's hard to get back, so I'm just going to lose those admin points. 50 is not too many. Like, you have many thousands throughout the game. So I can do, you know, you can do stuff like that occasionally. Usually I'll try to prioritize everything over money. Like, if I'm ever going to have an event and get to trade money for something else, I'll probably give up the money in favor for that something else. So you maybe noticed at some point a flag popped up over here. Oh, here's another one. So someone's asking us for military access. I don't really care if Tlemcen has military access, so I'm going to right-click it and make it go away. What I was talking about is the mission fulfilled flag. So one of these many tabs is the missions tab, and this is kind of a game's way of, like, I don't know, interpreting history onto the gameplay and giving you objectives and things to do, because it's a bit of a sandbox game. So one of the first missions I can do is build up my army to my force limit, which I kind of explained hopefully well enough. And if I do that, my units will cost less, land maintenance mod minus 5%, and they will fight better, plus 5% morale. I'm not fighting right now, and I will be at force limit in the foreseeable future, so what I'll do is I'm going to wait until I'm about to fight my war, and then I will take that option. Okay, so actually, something interesting is happening. My spy network became 22. It costs 20 spy network to fabricate 1 claim. So I'm going to fabricate a claim on this province here, which is right across from Kuta. It reduced our spy network by 20, and it lasts for 25 years. This can also be done by right-clicking and going into the diplomacy. You can fabricate a claim right here underneath the spy network. So great, I can fight them whenever I want, but there's something really good happening right now. Granada has gotten rebels, so any army with this red and black flag is a rebel army, and these are pretender rebels, so basically there's internal turmoil in Granada, and someone's trying to take over their country. Someone thinks they should sit on the throne instead of whoever is currently sitting on the throne. So they've got Emir Muhammad, and this guy here, his name Yusuf, thinks he's the rightful heir to the throne. So what I'm going to do, this is going to weaken their country. What I was hoping would happen is that the Granadan army would fight this rebel army. They would be weak and we could swoop in and destroy them. But unfortunately it's not going to play out like that. They've fled. But this army is going to siege down their capital and then take control of the government, and they're going to be in a really weak position when that happens. And so I'm just going to go in and stomp them. So I'm going to right click, go into the diplomacy view and see what their allies are. They have Morocco and Tunis as allies. Probably both of those countries would join the war, but maybe not, because you can see Morocco is actually at war with Tlemcen and Touggourt. So is Tunis. So let's see, I'm going to right click, I'm going to declare war. It's going to bring up this option. Looks like I have a truce with them. And both of their allies are willing to join the war. But you can see they have positive and negative reasons for doing so. And if the negative reasons outweigh the positive, they will not join the war. But they're nowhere close, so I'm probably going to end up having to fight those guys. What's also concerning is that Castile does not want to fight in this war with me. Oh, it's because they have a truce, and they seem to... the accepting would destabilize Castile means that something bad is going on in Castile internally, but I don't get to see what that is. So if I'm going to fight that war and fight these two down here, Morocco and Tunis, I want Castile in the war with me. But we have a military alliance, and there's a good chance I can get them to do that. Okay, here we got an event. This is a unique historical Portugal event, so I'm going to actually read this one out real quick. King Alfonso was only 6 years old when he became King of Portugal. For the next 6 years of his reign, the country has been ruled by the Duke of Coimbra. Don Alfonso has had no reason for complaint, and by most accounts his regency has been a just and efficient one. However, with the young king reaching majority, there are now many in our court who would try to influence their monarch. Jealous of the duke's influence, a group of noblemen has been trying to sow discord between him and the king, trying to frame him as a would-be rebel. In a last attempt to mend relations, the Duke of Coimbra has arrived with a number of retainers to seek an audience with Don Alfonso. So our old regent wants to be friends with him, but it seems like the public thinks that he's a traitor or a rebel. So if I kill him, I can gain 1 stability. But if I let him live, I get trade efficiency and tax, which is basically money for the entire lifetime of my monarch, who's only 15. So 1 stab right now is worth 155 administrative points, but I'm already at 1. I don't know, I'm going to go with this one, because that's going to give me a benefit for the entire life of my heir. It's usually a better idea in EU4 to go for the longer term, bigger benefit, like making an investment in your future. And as long as you play well, that will have been the right decision. So I'm going to place trust in our friend and mentor. He was a good guy. Our regency was fine. And so now we have a little bonus to our tax. Maybe we'll see that. Yeah, look at that. Our budget went from a deficit to a slight surplus, so that's good stuff. Okay, so now what are we doing? We've got our troops on the border. If I right-click and bring up the diplomacy view, you can see that we have a truce with Granada until 1449, so that's a couple years away. I think I'm just going to wait that out and fight Granada. I don't think fighting Morocco is my best choice. Oh, actually, this could be a very good choice. Ooh, okay, so Castile will join the war with Morocco, which is good. And Granada, their other ally, would not, because they have this rebellion in their capital. So it says here, minus 94 reasons for occupied and besieged provinces. Okay, that's awesome. So maybe I will go to war with Morocco. This is they're already at war with Tlemcen, so they'll be busy. Although it looks like they're just destroying Tlemcen right now, like it's not even a fight. And I can get Castile, good big brother, super strong Castile, to join my war. So I think this is a good call. Yeah. So I got my troops poised and ready to go. I'm actually going to move them to Ceuta. This is so great, so I really appreciate this feature. There's a way that armies can automatically be transported by your boats. So you'll see now my boats are moving. Didn't explain this too much. So my light ships are protecting trade. There's 4 kinds of ships. Where's that navy go? Okay, when I select my navy, you can see that there are heavy ships, light ships, galleys, and transports. So we have 3 heavy ships and 10 transports. Our light ships are off protecting trade. And really, light ships will mostly be for protecting trade. They don't fight particularly well, but they can fight, they're okay. Heavy ships are excellent at fighting. Galleys are like little boats that men sit in a row. So these are good in the Mediterranean Sea, but not on the open ocean, and they're also slow. Galleys are kind of bad, I don't use them, and you probably shouldn't either. And then there's transport ships, which ferry troops around, are very important. Okay, so something just happened. We got an heir. King Alfonso at age 15 has gotten someone pregnant. They were pregnant for 9 months, and now we have a 0-year-old baby named Isabel. So that's cute. We got a female heir. That's awesome. Except that she has very bad, like she's going to be a bad ruler, and we already know this somehow at age 0. So I went over this. Your monarch point has these skills. Our heiress has 1, 3, and 1, which is really bad. You can have up to 18 total points, 6 in each category. I try to get rulers with 10 or more, and our heir right now only has 5 points, so that's a really bad heir. Monarch points are pretty much the most important resource in the game, so I'm going to be doing everything in my power to get rid of that heir. So you can disinherit heirs if you have the Empire Founders DLC pack. I don't know exactly which DLC allows you to do this, but there's this little button right here. It costs 50 prestige to get rid of your heir, which is a huge hit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fight the war and then disinherit my heir, because I want that prestige during the war because it makes my armies fight better. Okay, so I want to fight soon. My troops are now in the right province. I'm going to increase my army maintenance. So I'm going to get myself ready for war. And you can see now I'm going to run a pretty juicy deficit for a little while. And as long as I win the war, I can totally afford to do that. It's no big deal, because I can get money from the defeated country in the war. So I'm going to wait. You can see the morale on this army is going to go up now that I increased my military expenditure. I have enough spy network to get claims on Morocco. The first one costs 20, and the second one costs 25. So that's very good. I now have a casus belli on Morocco. I can declare this war. Also remember that Morocco is my rival, so there's some additional benefits that I'm going to get from fighting them. And look, my spy network is high also with Granada, so I'm going to claim another province from Granada. I'm going to bring that guy home. Actually, I'm going to keep spying on Morocco. If you have a high spy network, there's some kind of hidden benefits. It makes their sieges fall faster, so I'm just going to keep that one rolling. So here's something kind of interesting. Morocco has vassals, which you can see here in the diplomacy screen, and you can also see that in the declare war screen. There's these countries with fully checked checkmark boxes. So those countries have to go to war with Morocco. Morocco is their overlord. They've sworn fealty to the Moroccan king, and they act in the interest of Morocco. So I'm gonna have to fight all these guys at once. But these are little vassals, they're not very strong. It also means Morocco is not as strong as it could be. So that's fine, this is all pretty normal. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, so the Granadan rebel army went away. And so now Granada is willing to join the war. So that's kind of bad, but doesn't really matter. Castile is sitting right here. Castile is going to go wall up the Granadans, and they won't even notice them. Okay, I'm going to get my fleet that's protecting trade, and I'm going to bring it over to combine with my other fleet. I'm going to bring them to port, and I'm going to add a leader. So you can imagine that this fleet is going to fight better if it has a leader. I also did this with my army. You can click up here. This is the general. You can give it the leader. This leader is pretty good. They have categories which will be relevant to the battle. At the beginning of the game, shock is the most important one. Fire determines how well your troops shoot, but our troops do not have guns. It's only 1448. So fire is pretty bad at the beginning of the game. We don't have cannons or guns. It gets really good later. Shock is the most important. That kind of represents like hand-to-hand melee combat. So we have a pretty good leader, which is great. And then the other two categories are maneuver and siege. Maneuver will make the army move faster and has some other benefits. And then the siege will make sieges go faster. Siege ticks are really valuable, so they make sieges go dramatically quicker than they would otherwise. Okay, something else. See this dotted line between these two provinces? You can probably figure that one out. It means you can walk between them with your armies. They are connected. However, there's a strait, and if there is an enemy navy blocking you in the strait, you can't cross. So I'm going to put my navy in the strait. I'm now blocking the strait, so armies won't be able to cross. Another interesting thing is that Granada has 9 light ships in the same sea tile. So as soon as we go to war together, if our units are in the same province, we'll fight. So this is a way to kind of snipe, cheap shot Granada's navy, because I will definitely beat the 9 light ships fleet with my 3 heavies. Heavies are just amazing. Pretty much if you want to win the naval battle, have more than heavies. Okay, so we're good. I'm also going to turn on this fort. Our deficit is going to get really ugly, but that's okay. Because we can get all that money back, and then I'm going to declare this war because I'm just sitting here paying for everything, losing money. I'm going to call Castile into the war. I can do something called declaring a co-belligerent. So I right-click, I can open up this declare war screen. They will accept the call to arms. I can click this button to make, oh, I can't make them a co-belligerent because I have a truce. Well, if I could, they would be called into the war and be able to call in their own allies. It's like they're more at risk. I can hurt them more if they're a co-belligerent. If they're just a regular ally, it's hard and expensive for me to take their territory. So declaring wars is one of those things you always seem to, it's an important moment. So you want to set yourself up right. You want to double check. You want to be careful about things. So you can see my troops are on the border. They're maintained. The fort is maintained. My ships are here. We're blocking the strait. We're ready to go. Hopefully Morocco is running around in Tlemcen. That war will end soon, it looks like, because Tlemcen is fully occupied, but still, their troops may have fought battles. They will have lost men and have lower manpower. They might have war exhaustion, which is another game mechanic. So I'm just going to go ahead and declare this war. I'm going to call in Castile. They will be my ally, and we will be fighting Morocco, Granada, and all of Morocco's little vassals.